Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for the market snapshot. I hope you're all having an awesome Friday morning. Yeah, so just to look at how the markets are looking like on the different assets, we are seeing a lot of risk aversion this morning, and of course, a lot of risk of trading on a number of things going into today's NFP report. To start it off, if you look at the cryptos, most of them, of course, are down as of trading today. And looking at the bonds, of course, you're also seeing a number of them also selling off. Stocks are also collapsing, a lot of them. And of course, yesterday, after the dismal earnings we got in Europe from the different automakers, we are seeing a lot of selling. Also, for some of the Mag 7 companies like Apple, Amazon reported relatively weak earnings. We saw a drop on Apple's China revenue. We also saw really low slight bits on revenue segments like wearables, and of course on services revenue, which of course is a key contribution to Apple's bottom line. We also saw a drop on shares of Snapchat, which of course are all contributing towards the drop we are seeing on the Nasdaq and a few other indices. Now, we are seeing a lot of selling taking place on a number of things, not only on risk on currencies like the pound and the euro, but we're also seeing a lot of broad selling off taking place on the indices. Generally, most indices across from Asia to Europe to the US, we are seeing quite intense risk of sentiment taking place. Now, in light of the recent developments we are seeing in the Middle East, a number of things have been moving up, like gold. Gold has been spiking higher. Currently, it's trading at around 2,463 on the back of that potential retaliation that is coming in from Iran for the killing of their key commander. We're also seeing Brent crude also up, Brent oil also up. Brent crude also slightly down by 0.5%, but also still in bullish territory. Now, crossing over to the economic calendar, I want us to look briefly at the NFP numbers that are going to be coming out later today. So the NFP, again, is one of the most important economic events that we have, not only in the Forex market, but also in the stocks and the commodities market, because it usually has a big impact on the movement. Now, before I go through the data, it's important to know what the current sentiment is. So the current sentiment in the market, I would say, is a risk of sentiment, where we are seeing less taking on of risk on assets and more taking on of risk of assets. And of course, safety, we are seeing a lot of flight to safety for currencies like the yen, like the Swiss franc, and also for commodities like gold and silver. Now, looking at the jobs data, it's clear from a jobs data that the key metric, which of course is this one right here, is pointing towards a potential decline from 206,000 to 176,000. Now, it's also important to note that from the recent statement we got from Jerome Powell, he indicated that the labor market was showing signs of cooling, which of course is in line with the expectations. But you indicated also that what is happening in the labor market is not indicative of any need for them to rush with needing to cut rates. They said they will only rush to cut rates only if there's a must for them to. Yeah, so looking at the data, we are seeing there's an expected decline on non-farm payrolls numbers from 206K to 176K. We're also expecting a decline on a slight increase on private non-farm payrolls from 136K to about 148K. We're expecting potential hold of the unemployment rate at 4.1%. We're also expecting that we get average hourly earnings also slightly dipping there from 3.9% to 3.7%. Now, it's also important to note that in previous NFP reports, the reason why we have also been seeing a sharp increase on NFP numbers has been because more Americans are taking on part-time jobs, which has also contributed to a higher number. And the Fed has been missing that particular key factor, because it has been telling them that the labor market is actually strong, but then when the average American is actually not spending as much, or they are needing to take on more jobs for that they keep up with the cost of with the cost of living. Yeah. So going into the jobs report, I think it's important to note currently what the sentiment is. If we get a bearish report for the dollar, I think the dollar might not sell too much, seeing that there's a lot of risk aversion taking place. So which means we might get that initial knee-jerk reaction from the market that will then now reverse for the market to either buy in favor of the dollar, and possibly sell in favor of risk-on currencies like the pound, like the euro, and of course gold. I'm also expecting gold to possibly move higher, even without a slight knee-jerk reaction possibly to the data that's going to come out. Now, crossing over to financial juice, I just need to briefly go through some of the how the earnings came out yesterday for a number of companies. So looking at the companies looking at some of the companies, so we're going to go through the stocks, go through the earnings for some of the top stocks. Then from there, we shall cross over to the DXY. And then after the DXY, we shall then cross over to the charts to do some technical analysis. So yesterday, we had a bit of a sharp sell on Intel. Intel indicated that they are going to carry out a 10 billion cost reduction plan. And they will also be redoing retrenchment, where they will lay off about 19,000 employees over the course of a year. We have also seen that the data center and AI revenue has taken a dip for Intel, which of course I think doesn't come that much as a surprise, especially because of the competition that is currently taking place in the semiconductors industry. Some of the semiconductors, especially Intel, has been having a tough time competing with companies like NVIDIA. Now, they also indicated that they're going to suspend the dividends from Q4 2024, and Intel actually was down about, it collapsed, I think, about 11% after the release of their earnings. Can just quickly look at Intel before I come to Snapchat. Okay, so we have Intel Corporation. So you can see how the Intel stock is doing. It was down quite a bit after hours yesterday. It collapsed 20%. So it collapsed it closed at $29 a share. And then after the report, Intel was down another 21%. If you're wondering why Nasdaq is down today, if you're wondering why your Nasdaq on FX Spacer, the cash CFD is down, it's because of this Intel collapse. Now, the other thing is also Apple. So Apple's earnings, of course, were a bit, but there was a dip on its Greater China revenue, which of course is a key component to the bottom line for Apple. There was also a slight increase on their services revenue, rather a slight bit on a services revenue, which is very, very important also component for Apple, because the subscription for their services like the music and the iCloud and all this contributes a lot. Now, the wearables are also not doing very well, as you can see. It only increased, there was only a slight bit of 8.1 billion. Mac revenue was outstanding. Of course, operations expenses, they came in lower than expected, which is good, but of course still within that range. Now, Snapchat yesterday is actually what caused a very, 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 very big dip on the Nasdaq, because Snapchat was down quite a bit on not so good earnings. It's been having a hard time trying to scale from where it currently is, especially because it's not really getting ways to monetize more of its content, and it's also getting a lot of competition from companies like TikTok. Also they're having a hard time, trying to get in more businesses, especially that could potentially increase their revenue, ad revenue and all these kinds of things. Yeah, so that's essentially what we have for the stocks, and also what's also causing a big sell for in the US. Now for the DAX, yesterday we also had some really not too good earnings from automakers in Germany. A number of automakers released earnings yesterday, and the earnings were not too good. It explains why we are having a sell on the D40 going into the US session. Now, it's also important to note, if you're here and you trade stocks, and also if you trade indices, August is usually not a good month for stocks in general. If you look at the historical trends, typically August tends to be the month where we see a lot of selling on a number of stock indices and stocks. So despite the earnings, I think it's likely that we will get more weakness coming in. Now, looking at the DXY going into the NFP report, this is how the DXY is currently looking like. First of all, we are holding our 6-month support all the way from areas of April. We have been holding this level very nicely. And of course, I'm expecting that if we get a if the report comes in first of all, in line with expectation, if we get maybe 180, 190, we should then see a surge on the DXY. And of course, if we get a report above 200K, we could potentially see a very sharp move here for the DXY, taking us closer to this high that we had in June, and then of course then reversing back lower. Now, I would say I'm keeping a relatively bullish outlook for the dollar, being a safe haven currency. It's very likely that we see that risk aversion coming in, especially with the fear building up more and more. We will see more risk aversion to money markets, and really to see a risk aversion to safety. So things like gold, currencies like the yen and the Swiss franc are most likely going to benefit with currently how the market is trading. Awesome. Let's cross over to the charts. Let's cross over to the MT5 and go over the charts. So for BTC, this is how BTC is trading now. So I indicated the last time we met that Bitcoin had been stuck in a 3-month Davos box on the higher time frames. The reason for this is because there is still not that much of a potential move or momentum that could potentially take us higher. And of course, we have been seeing this even with us seeing a relative increase on their inflows to the ETFs and all this thing. Bitcoin is still having a bit of trouble moving higher. The other key important fundamental catalyst for any movements here is the US government had confiscated crypto in the Silk Road crackdown. I'm sure some of you have heard about that incident. So they have sent about 29,000 Bitcoins to a wallet. And I'm not so certain what they are going to do with that Bitcoin. But the last time we saw a government, selling Bitcoin, that was Germany. It was selling Bitcoin. I think they sold about 40,000 Bitcoin. There was a really big impact on the market as a result of that. So if we see the Bitcoin sales starting, then I think we are going to have a relatively big reaction on the market, and we could possibly see Bitcoin going below this box to possibly go and get into this imbalance of 48,000, possibly 49,000. Yeah. Just give my computer a moment for it to. A moment, those online. Okay, so I think we are good to go. Now, crossing over to the indices, this is what we're having on the indices. So the indices, it's important to understand, especially if you go on higher time frames, that what we are seeing with the indices was the push that we had to the upside was just a slight recovery from a downtrend. Okay, so we are actually in a downtrend. That's why I actually marked this area for you. That's why I marked that area for you. So this is the Dow Jones. So we saw this area of 41,000. Oh, okay. So we saw the market moving up to this area of 41,000 and immediately selling from that area there. So what I'm expecting here is we should see more weakness here, possibly going into the US session. But it's also likely that if we do not get that much of an increase on the fear and the general bearish sentiment, then it's likely that we recover. Now, in terms of the NFP numbers, higher bits on NFP, or whenever we get an NFP number higher than the estimate, it's usually bullish for the indices. So I'm expecting that we should see a move higher on the indices if we get, if only that the sentiment stays or switches from bearish to bullish. But at the moment, there is still a lot of bearish sentiment here that would possibly see the Dow Jones selling even further, coming down to this area here of 40,000. Now, crossing over to the Dow Jones, there was a question on what affects NASDAQ. So like I mentioned, there are a number of things that affect NASDAQ. NASDAQ is affected mostly by fundamentals. So by fundamentals, we are saying things like earnings, how companies perform. We have and we're now in the Q2 earnings cycle, and a number of companies are releasing earnings. Yesterday, we had earnings from Apple, which I went through. We had earnings from Intel and earnings from Amazon. Those earnings were dismal earnings. They didn't really, they didn't really impress, and that's why we are seeing that move to the downside. The other thing that's affecting NASDAQ is we're also seeing that there is a bit of unwinding that is taking place in the broader market that is now affecting your cash CFD that you're trading. So like I said, August tends to be a bit of a bearish month. So we are seeing some unwinding happening that we are now seeing reflecting in the momentum on the charts. Now, looking at the NASDAQ, first of all, had a very nice recovery from this demand zone. That was, I think, before FOMC. But immediately, you can see we just did not manage to break this area here, and immediately we moved higher. Now, the other thing also is that NASDAQ also had a death cross on a H4 time frame. That death cross affected the momentum, and you can see that immediately when it happened, price action failed to move above it, and we immediately saw price reverse into the downside. Now, the last time NASDAQ had a swing higher was in April, okay? So the swing trade that we had from NASDAQ ended on the 17th of July, and we are currently now in a downtrend swing on a NASDAQ. That could potentially take us all the way back to the April lows. The only company that is left to release earnings is NVIDIA. So it's likely that maybe the NVIDIA earnings will cause a stop to the selling. NVIDIA is due to release its earnings soon. And of course, these earnings will definitely, possibly, put a stop to the selling that we are seeing on the NASDAQ. So NVIDIA is due to release its earnings soon enough. I'm not too certain when exactly. Oh, on the 28th of August. So NVIDIA still has some time, 28th of August. that's when it's releasing the earnings. So we should see some bullish momentum kicking in towards the end of this month. Now, going over to gold. Gold is looking relatively bullish at the moment. Gold is a no-brainer buy whenever you have uncertainty, whenever you have fear in the market. Gold is the go-to asset. So looking at gold with our fib levels here, I drew my fib levels marking the top for gold, which is somewhere around 2,482, and I drew the bottom along this area of demand, which is somewhere around here. So you can see we saw gold retracing in a downtrend swing. Gold held this price around here and immediately moved higher. Now, there are two things to note on gold. The last time we had an NFP, and the NFP report came at the same time when we were having escalation in tensions, like we are currently seeing in the Middle East. Gold had a very slight reaction to the NFP report before moving higher. I think the reaction from gold in the case of a weak report is possibly going to see gold having a very slight retracement after the report is released. Possibly, it could be very, very slight. We might have a retracement of anywhere between 100 to 200 pips. And then soon after we get that retracement, we are possibly going to move to the upside. Now, you can notice here, my fib levels are currently showing gold is currently aiming for the peak, which is around 2,482. I'm expecting that if we have a break of that peak, gold could potentially move towards 2,500. Now, why gold is on so much tension at the moment is because Iran has mentioned that it's going to retaliate for the killing of one of its commanders. It has not indicated when the retaliation is going to happen, and that is what is brewing a lot of bullish momentum for gold. That uncertainty around when will the attack happen, and that is why we are seeing that flight to safety, and it's also affecting gold. So regardless of what you get with NFP, is really unlikely to move gold higher. Now, if we get a report that is bearish for the dollar, that is going to support gold, and we should see gold breaking above this level, aiming towards that area of 2,500. So I would still maintain a bullish outlook for gold going into the NFP. Now, crossing over to GBPUSD. GBPUSD, I believe we've had a bearish outlook for it. You can go over to the Wednesday's market snapshot that we had. And the reason why we are having a sharp sell on the pound dollar is because of the rate cut that took place yesterday. Bank of England cut their benchmark rate by 0.25% or 25 basis points. And that is the reason why we saw that sharp sell. Now, also importantly, is that if you look at the momentum for GBPUSD, you can clearly see how bearish it has been. Currently, markets have been factoring in a bearish pound, especially with the rate cut that is taking place. And the downtrend swing for the pound dollar began on the 17th of July. And this downtrend swing is currently what is indicating or showing signs of bearish momentum. So I'm expecting the downtrend for the pound to continue, and this could potentially push it back to this level down here. Now, in terms of the kind of structure we're having on the pound, it's a bearish structure currently on your H4 time frame, and we are seeing some signs of hesitation at certain levels, especially around this level here where the pound is currently at. If we get a weak NFP report, then I believe the pound could attempt a reversal to the upside, but we'll keep it very, very minimal. It could reverse possibly by just about 50 to 40 pips back to this area here. And of course, then we shall see move back to the downside. But at the moment, the pound is looking extremely bearish, and any strong NFP report will absolutely weaken it even further, coming down to this area here. Now going over to Euro USD. Euro USD, I marked my Fibonacci retracements at the peak of that swing. The peak of the swing took Euro USD all the way to this level here. That was at this level of 1.09445. And soon after attempting to reach that level, we saw the downtrend swing beginning. So the downtrend swing began from here and is currently active at the moment on this particular asset. Now, when we met on Wednesday, I indicated to you that we're having a very nice rising wedge, which you can clearly see here on the H4 time frame. And you can also see that the euro has been having a number of liquidity sweeps or grabs to the downside, indicating that the buyers are losing a lot of momentum. Now, at the moment, the euro is attempting to get back into its premium zone, which is above that level of 1.08103. So I have my fib level added there, and I removed certain percentages from my fib. So I only have the 100%, and then I have the one at the bottom, and then I have my 50%, and then my golden ratio right there. So the golden ratio, we had an attempt of it yesterday, but immediately after attempting it, we saw the euro immediately retrace into the moment. Yeah, so at the moment, this is what I'm expecting with the euro. We should see a potential attempt to go back to that Fibonacci retracement, that's golden ratio. If we failed it, then we are most likely going to reverse lower, and we should see the euro coming to sell back to these areas here. Now, keep in mind, guys, we are now in a bearish structure on the euro. Even if I were to add my pattern, it would clearly show you that we are now actually in some kind of a bearish structure that has taken us lower and lower and lower on this particular currency. Awesome. Let's cross over to USDJPY. Now for USDJPY, this is what we're having on USDJPY. First of all, the Bank of Japan indicated this week that they are going to start hiking rates aggressively, and they could also, they said that they are also going to start asset purchases. I think at 8 trillion, they're going to do 8 trillion, is it 8 trillion, 8 billion yen per month. And that, of course, is having a very, very big impact on the euro, rather the pound, the dollar, yen. Now, it's also important to note that the top for the dollar yen is in. The reason why we are having a sharp sell on the dollar yen is simply because, first of all, the yen is a risk of currency. No, the yen is a safety currency. So we are seeing that selling momentum kicking in, that is affecting the yen. Now, going into NFP today, I'm expecting us to get some bullish, bearish momentum that could possibly see the yen, the USDJPY possibly selling back to these areas here. However, if we get a strong report today, then I believe we should see some recovery here for this particular currency pair, taking us back to this level up here. But at the moment, the bearish momentum is still quite aggressive, and we could see it continuing into today, later into today. Awesome. So that's what I have. If you have any questions now may be the time for you to send through your questions so that I can go over them. Yeah, so for the NASDAQ, like I mentioned earlier, fundamentals affect the NASDAQ. I think I mentioned this earlier. Fundamentals affect the NASDAQ. So earnings, if the earnings come out, not too good, especially key components. Like if you have, like Apple is a heavyweight on the NASDAQ. Amazon is also a heavyweight. All those companies play a part. Now, the other thing also is you look at the technicals, okay? If you go on the NASDAQ, you'll notice that we actually were in a downtrend swing. So the downtrend swing paused yesterday. So it's just continuing a pullback, okay? It's just continuing its pullback that began earlier in the month, earlier last month. Awesome. Next question. Yeah, so for DE40, DE40 is also bearish. Yesterday we had a very, very nice sell on DE40 from I think 18,200, and it's really looking good. Just give me a moment. Just have to get this. Let's close this again. Pixie, you're saying NFP EURUSD prediction. Yeah, EURUSD is most likely going to, if we see a better than expected report, then of course we shall get a retracement back to those levels I indicated to you on the charts. We have key levels on our retracement zones where we'll be looking at. Then of course, yeah, closer towards to the downside if we see a potential higher report. And of course, if the report comes in weaker, then of course we should see USD moving higher. Moses Rono, you're saying currently what is the best asset to trade for long time, like in a month? You get your profit back. With certainty, I can't say for sure. But usually, if you're looking for trades, you need to have. If you're looking for a long-term trade, you need to have a strategy where you're looking for swing trading, and it's important for you to focus on looking at to get. If you want a long-term trade, you need to sell at the swing highs. For instance, like if you say here you have USDJPY, the swing high for USDJPY was up here. Okay. So you aim for the swing highs. You get the swing highs, you sell from the swing highs, and then you buy from the swing lows. So that's usually the best approach when it comes to swing trading. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so for DE40, we had a bearish outlook on it. It had a very sharp sell today, which is actually the reason for this sell is majorly because of the automakers' earnings. The earnings have not really been too good, and that's why we've not even seen new highs being made on the D40. So this month of August also tends to be a bearish month. So we should see some weakness going into August, possibly coming closer to our low that we had in April. So at the moment, I would maintain a relatively bearish outlook on it. I know, but the indices seem to be having a huge sell-off. You mentioned that August is not a good month to buy them. Does that extend to the month, or we can expect some? Yeah, so remember, historical performance is not an indication of expected future performance. So you need to make sure that you apply your risk on it. But typically, the bearish momentum tends to play a part usually heavily in August, especially since we see profit taking happening around this time, but also the Middle East tensions that are currently taking place are not really helping a lot, and all that is playing a part in that bearish momentum that we are seeing in the indices. In terms of NFP unused trading, once the results are out, does it mean a red reading bearish, and as in you should trade sales and a green? Thomas, I don't think I'm getting quite what you're asking there. It's a bit confusing. You're saying in terms of NFP unused trading, once results are out, does it mean a red reading bearish, as in you should trade sales, and a green one bullish? No. That's not what it means. You don't interpret the data by the colors. You interpret by the numbers. So usually if the NFP number is 200K previous and the forecast is 170K, you're expecting that the number is going to come in. If the number comes in lower than the previous, then that means, if the number comes in lower than the previous, it means it's bearish for the dollar. And if the number comes in higher than the previous, that means it's bullish for the dollar. So I might have a number, I might have my numbers marked red, okay, but then I have a lower reading, okay. It's happened before. And then you see, for instance, rather, you might have a number coming in lower than the previous, but then you have you have the market reacting positively. So you focus on the numbers, whether it's higher or lower, not the color. So I hope that helps. Yeah, so for USDJPY, I've already gone through it, and I think maybe you guys might have to watch the snapshot again. I've gone through the USDJPY. So I mentioned that what is weakening the yen currently is the Bank of Japan hiked their rates this week, and also the yen currency is a safe haven currency. So in times of uncertainty, in times of fear, you see the yen benefiting. Okay, awesome. Is it possible to see gold and a DXY move in the same direction in case the geopolitical tensions worsen and macroeconomics are in favor of that? The dollar can move in a direction as gold. Yes, it happens all the time. The correlation is not perfect. The negative correlation is not perfect, okay? Yeah, it's not perfect, yeah. Gold also might move higher today on the back of the geopolitical fears. That's why it could move higher. The dollar, the US dollar, could move further. DXY could move higher if we have a positive reading, an NFP reading, then it could also move higher. Yeah, so I hope that helps. What shall we expect on silver? So silver is looking bullish as well. We are seeing some bullish momentum for silver. If we just quickly look at it here on trading view, so silver made a floor, okay. If you check your H4 time frame, you can see silver made a floor. So its floor is around here, within that area of 25 to 26, and it made a fake out, and immediately after making the fake out, it immediately moved higher. So I'm expecting silver to possibly strengthen going into the NFP report, and we could see silver moving higher all the way to that level of $30 an ounce. Awesome. Does FX Pesa support trading on trading view? No, it doesn't. FX Pesa, you cannot trade with FX Pesa on trading view, but you can use trading view for analysis. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and for coming here for the snapshot. In case you do not have an account with FX Pesa and you start your trading journey, there's a link going to be in the description for you to click and start your trading. FXpress has a lot of resources that you can utilize for you to trade. I wish you all happy NFP. Manage your risk well, and see you guys next week. Cheers and happy trading.